2025 Audit Committee meeting to order. Ms. Hairston, will you please call the roll?
Yes, Madam Chair. Representing Educational District 1, Ms. Katie Howard.
Present.
Representing Educational District 2, Ms. Arauda Balden.
Present.
Representing Educational District 5, Ms. Erica Mitchell. She is not present, but she will be joining us on Zoom. Also present, we have Madam General Counsel Nina Gupta. On Zoom, we do have 2 community advisors, Roland Edwards, and one community advisor. And then also present on the dais, we have Brian Hawkins, who's also a community advisor. Madam Chair, we have a quorum.
Excellent, thank you. May I will now entertain a motion to approve the January 16th Audit Committee meeting minutes.
So moved.
Second. It has been moved by Board Member Howard and seconded by myself. All in favor? Aye. Any opposition? All right, motion carries. Moving on, is there a motion to approve the March 20th, 2025 Audit Committee meeting agenda?
So moved.
Second. So I have a motion by Board Member Howard, a second by Board Member Balden. All in favor? Aye. Any opposition? Motion carries. Moving on. We are now going to move forward with our discussion items, and I will hand it over to Connie.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Balden and committee members. Today, I will begin by providing Today, I will begin by providing an update on the audit plan status for school year 2025 and summarizing our ethics and compliance concerns received since our last meeting in January. Additionally, I will present an update along with several screenshots illustrating the progress made on the corrective action plan tracker tool that we've been talking about for the past couple of months. I will conclude our discussion with a recommendation to extend the term of a community advisor. The Plant Moran team will join us afterwards to present the results of our recently completed audit projects and provide an update on the remediation efforts related to the corrective action plan work we've been doing. For an update on the school year 2025 audit plan, according to our current status, OIC is making steady progress towards completing the audit projects as outlined in the approved audit plan. Most of the miscellaneous cash activity account audits are nearly complete. We have approximately 8 schools remaining, and we expect most of those to be finished by the end of the month with the full compilation report ready by the end of May, and we expect to present that during the June Audit Committee meeting. The results of the financial reporting audit, cybersecurity assessment, and family and community engagement audits have been completed, and we will present those reports during today's meeting. Also, you can see the student extracurricular activities audit along with the human resources termination audit are also in process right now. Any questions before I move to the next slide? Continuing with our update, this slide compares the team's budgeted hours versus actual hours. And as you can see, there were a couple of overages in some of our recent audits. Financial reporting, a couple of delays due to multiple meetings on policies and procedures and documentation. Not actually receiving some of the documents on a timely basis. Similar results for our cybersecurity assessment. Delays caused by untimely information receipt, several meeting reschedules, and misidentification of points of contact led to some of the delays in that particular audit as well. Even though it wasn't a large overage, 6% is still over. The student extracurricular activities audit, while it has not been completed fully, we did see an increase in hours due to the additional time required to actually validate the population. And that was really mainly the result of most of the information being manual, and it just took time for us to ensure that we had a complete population before we started sampling. Our family and community engagement audit was significantly under budget, which helps offset some of the overage from our financial reporting audit. But other than that, everything else appears to be on track for completion. So that's the update on the current plan. I'll stop now and see if there are any questions.
Katie, you want to start?
With the extracurricular activities audit, you're saying it took longer to gather the information because it was more manual?
Yes.
Share a little more about that.
Based on the information we were looking for, it's manual. Every school does it a little differently. For instance, and when we get to the audit, we'll talk a little bit more about it, but they keep records differently. When we're trying to figure out how did you determine, I'm just going to use this as an example, the fees for a particular student activity. We had to wait to get that information. It looks different. When we were looking at our student online funds in terms of trying to figure out what kind of dollars were associated with extracurricular activities, it took us time to go through all of the schools, all of the data, just so that we were comfortable that we had the correct population, or as correct as it could possibly be.
So improving that process
Yes.
could be something that comes out of the audit.
That took a while.
And then the 6% overage, what is, and I'm sure it's in here, and apologies, the cost overall of that overage?
6%.
I think you said 6% overage just overall for all the,
For that
Project.
particular audit,
for all the projects.
oh, I didn't, not for all of
She was
them.
talking about cybersecurity.
Cybersecurity, that was a 6%. For instance, if you look at, it's the finance and reporting budget audit that we did, we reported out last time, that was roughly about a 5%. It was less than 5%, but with it being less than 5%, it was really hard to key in on one particular thing that caused it because of the immaterial amount. But from an audit committee perspective, we had talked about sharing this type of information with the committee. It helps us try and stay on track. I mean, if I have a budget of 300 hours, I really want to try and stick to it. But sometimes these are all first-time audits for us, and these are estimates. These are our best guess estimates, so we're never quite sure, what we might find, what kind of delays we might run into. But overall, I think it wasn't bad. But I want to share the information with the committee.
Definitely want to see the information. Thank you.
I have a question.
Mhm.
So we're not done yet with the, how many more hours do you think? Oh, I turned my microphone off. How many more hours do you think are going to be necessary to complete? Like, where do you think we'll net out?
I think we're close because all the fieldwork is complete right now, and the draft findings are on my desk for review. So once I get through the draft findings, we'll set up an exit meeting with the responsible parties, and we'll walk through what we found, and then we'll put the findings in front of them for them to give us corrective action plans. So I'm anticipating that piece will be done within the next 2 weeks. It's like I said, right now, it's on my desk for review.
And then I'm going to ask, but it looks like we're okay with our numbers because we do have a couple projects that have not been completed yet.
Yes.
We have projects that came in significantly under
Yes.
that are balancing some of the ones that came over. So all that said, do you have any concerns about us being able to complete the plan with the amount of hours that we have left?
I don't.
Excellent. Any other questions? Anything online?
No questions online.
Okay, thank you.
Moving on to our ethics and compliance update. I like to always reiterate what this process is for those that are out there listening and not sure about how this the ethics and compliance hotline works. So OIC is tasked with receiving and processing concerns submitted through multiple channels, such as the ethics and compliance hotline, Let's Talk. Let's Talk, emails, and telephone referrals. Based on the specifics of each concern, OIC may investigate or assign the issue to the relevant APS team member for resolution. Typically, cases not managed by OIC are handled by the Office of Employee Experience and Performance, and typically, or generally, most of the reports are received via the Ethics and Compliance Hotline. From January to July 28th of this year, the hotline registered 14 concerns. 3 of those concerns were managed by the Office of Internal Compliance. Based on those 3 cases, due to, again, insufficient actionable information, 2 of the concerns were not investigated. The one where we did have enough information, we determined that it was an unsubstantiated claim. So it was a light 2-month period for us. Any questions? If there are no questions, the fun part, our corrective action plan tracker update and illustration. I want to share with the committee members the corrective action plan tracker tool, specifically designed to enhance the efficiency and effectiveness of communication between OIC and our stakeholders. The tool streamlines the process of notifying and reminding stakeholders about the due dates for corrective action items. It facilitates updates on status of these actions and ensures timely validation and closure by the Office of Internal Compliance. With features like tracking statuses, notifications, customizable reporting, and a user-friendly interface, this tool aims to improve the collaboration while ensuring security for all audit-related information. The tool is based on the Power Apps platform, and IT worked closely with us and in terms of looking at my requests and my wish list, and I think I got just about everything that I asked for. And what the next couple of slides, and I will tell you, we are in the last phases of our user acceptance testing. I should have the initial testing completed by tomorrow. We've had meetings with IT this week to work on some of the suggestions and feedback that have come out of us using it for the past week. And they were really quick to make some of those changes, but there's still a little bit more work to do. That's why I think by tomorrow or early next week, we should be done with our user testing. But again, just wanted to share some of the tool with the audit committee so you get a feel and look for the features and what it looks like. So the next couple of slides are gonna take us through what it looks like. And after today's meeting, if you've got questions, or want a closer look, you can always give me a call. I can set up a Teams meeting and kind of walk you through what we have so far. Okay.
But this is an internal,
This is an internal, developed in-house
yes.
by our IT team for us to use.
You.
Okay, so the following slides are going to offer an overview of the tool's designs and features, and the slides are intended for illustration purposes only, and the information that you see on the screen in any of these slides does not represent actual status specific to any corrective action plan. Okay, just just so that we're clear. But we'll start with our first screenshot, and our first screenshot is the landing screen that users will see when they actually launch the application. The landing page displays a color-coded statuses of each corrective action plan. The tool, as you can see at the, this is not the right tool. I'm not sure how trying to work the flasher so I could point to things, and I don't see it working. But at the upper right-hand corner, you will see an Export Data tab. That allows me to export all of this data into a secured SharePoint site so that I have the ability to filter and sort and create dashboards and presentations. That's a lot of information. We're going to have 200 plus items in here, so we'll need to filter that so that I can actually share more meaningful information with the audit committee going forward and on a more timely basis. So again, we've got I'm able to manage the request. If you look at the lower right-hand corner, I've got the Manage the Request tab. As the administrator, I can go in and make changes as necessary. But what's important is if you look at the legend, they're sorted, they can be sorted by, when we first submit a corrective action item, the auditor can input the information, they can submit it as a draft, and it's waiting for me to validate it before it actually goes to the responsible owner. We show corrective action items that are open, and if you look closely, you can see the responsible party, you can see the targeted completion date. There's a days overdue tally that is going to be running. So not only can I see this, our responsible parties will be able to go into this tool and they can look at items that are assigned specifically to them. They don't have to look at everything. They can only see what is specific to them. So yes, hopefully that is what they will see. The other good thing about the tool is it puts the onus on the stakeholder to keep our office informed as to the status and where they are on a particular item. So really excited to see this. There's that too. There's that too. This is a tab. So basically there are 6 tabs set up. They include audit information, responsible party, corrective action items. Those 3 tabs are mainly for my department where we go in and we enter the initial corrective action and the finding. The responsible parties will have access to review that. They won't have access to edit it. The final three tabs will be for them, and I'll walk you through what those tabs are. But I wanted to start with this tab, which is the audit information, and this tab basically is where we enter the essential information, project number, the actual observation, the actual expected target date. I also get to assign an auditor that's going to follow up on this one, and right now it's going to be me. But we want to give the responsible party a name so that they can reach back out to me if they have additional questions. So that's, again, just trying to give you a feel for what the tool looks like and how user-friendly it can be. So our next slide, this is a responsible party slide, and it is exactly what it says, is we enter the information, the primary responsible party, their title, their phone number. If they're secondary responsible parties, if they want to give us additional responsible parties, we can enter that information too. That is important because these are the individuals that will receive the notifications and be included in any of the updated communications that transpire between our office and them. So that's what this slide is for. Moving on to slide 14. This is actually the corrective action plan tab, and this tab collects the data about management's corrective actions. It includes the original recommendation. It includes their corrective action plan, so it's there for them. What you can't see because it was cut off on this screen is there's also a place for attachments. So what I envision doing here is while this information is here, in our previous Excel documents, we had to truncate some of the information. So here I plan to attach the full audit report so you don't have to leave this tool to go search for the report. If you need additional context, I can attach it. The surveys that we've been doing for the past year and a half with the management provided information, the plan is to upload that information too so they don't have to go search for it. They'll have a history of what they've agreed to do and the timeline for it. Unfortunately, we just didn't make that particular slide. The next slide is the management response slide, and this is the slide where management responds to us. They get to tell us that they have hopefully implemented the corrective action plan with fidelity. They get to tell us the date that they did it, and then at the bottom they get to click remediated by management, and that again will change the color coding on the front tab. And it comes to our office and lets us know that management has actually implemented it. The next slide, I really like this slide, it's the communication tab. So in the interim between management actually implementing the corrective action plan, if things change, if their timeline changes, if they need to request additional time, they have the opportunity here to communicate with a department in this tool. And I'm excited about this because it eliminates those external emails that could get lost or misplaced and not read. Everything's here, and it'll be, all communications will be time and date stamped. And so there's now a history of any requests that they're making. If they're requesting extensions for implementations, they can put their requests in here. I can take a look at it because I will receive a notification. I can respond to them in the same tool. They will get notified that I've responded, and they can go into the tool at any time and read my response, and we can communicate back and forth until we've kind of negotiated what needs to happen during our next steps, which is something we didn't really have before. So I'm really excited about this one. The next slide is the audit review, and this is mainly for the auditors and me to actually validate information that's been submitted by the stakeholders. I have the option here. The stakeholders can say we've implemented it. We can do our testing. There's the potential that we have additional questions or we don't think it's quite where it needs to be. So here we have the opportunity to return it for management and ask for further clarification. And again, they'll be notified, and we can continue this communication in that communication log. Again, if we review it and we think that it was implemented with fidelity, there's an audit sign-off button. We can click that, and that automatically generates an email to the process owner letting them know that we've completed our review and we validated it and it's closed. And they can move on to the next item. I went through that pretty quickly. Again, any questions or concerns about what that tool looks like right now?
So I don't have a question. I just have a huge thank you to everyone who played a part in this. I mean, this has come a long way from where we were.
Absolutely.
I mean, for people who have been on this committee for a while, where we really kind of didn't have a clear understanding of what was going on with the remediations, to the next stage where we threw something together that gave us something, right? But it was a little misleading, but it was something in terms of an Excel chart. And now we have a system. And what's exciting to me is everything is in one place. You don't have to go look for, well, what did this say? And then what did I say? Like, it's all there, as well as the communication. So this, as someone who will not be in the system, it looks like it's pretty efficient and effective. And I want to thank the superintendent and our board leadership for making this a priority and getting this done.
And the IT team worked closely with us, and I appreciate them responding to every email request that I put in front of them after I gave them my initial wish list. This last slide is simply the SharePoint data repository where all this information, this tool, it's here. So I can go here and I can filter and export to tools like Power BI to present, to create those presentations and dashboards that you guys will be seeing in our regular meetings.
So I believe Earl has a question, and Earl, I'm going to ask it, but you may need to come off mute and explain. But he asked if the review hours are in the budget. I'm not sure if he's talking about the hours that you're using to review this product. I believe that is what it's in reference to. So Earl, if you have a clarifying, please add. Sounds like he's talking about the reviewing this, the hours that you're using to build this.
So for our audit plan for this year, we had a remediation project. So that review is in there. So going forward, I plan to continue to have a remediation project for this.
So your hours would be
So
then account.
we would account for this project.
Okay.
Because this is ongoing. Yeah. So I would allocate time for it to happen.
Thank you, Earl.
Okay.
Any other questions? Comments? Yeehaws?
Again, a special thanks to the IT team for working with me on this.
To me and team. We'll keep y'all busy.
Before I actually bring up the plant team to talk about our audit projects, I wanted to pivot to the community advisor recommendation that we talked about. Brian his 3-year term is coming to an end, and I feel like his contributions have been valuable for not only my department, but for the district as a whole. And what I'd like to do is recommend that the audit committee submit his name for reappointment to the board in the upcoming audit committee meeting. So I'm just throwing that out, opening the floor up for discussion if there needs to be any.
So is there any discussion around this, this recommendation? I have a question just to general counsel in terms of, are there any restrictions in terms of how many terms a community member can serve? And assuming that there are none, I'm all for it.
There are none.
I'm all for it too. Brian's been a great asset to this team.
Okay.
Thankful that you want to continue to serve.
And like, and we'll ask, is this something that you're up for,
I
Brian?
already
It
asked.
is, thank you very much. And the scary part to me is how fast time flies.
Right?
Because it feels like yesterday was the last, like, oh, they up for reappointment. I'm like, it's been 3 years already? So, thank you for the opportunity.
Excellent.
It's my
That means you're
pleasure.
down for 3 more.
Yes.
Yes.
So do we
It's 3
need
years.
a motion and a vote?
Yes. Motion, second, vote.
Is there a motion to renew Brian's appointment on the audit committee for an additional 3 years?
So moved. There's a motion to extend it for 3 years.
Second. All in favor? Aye. We'll see if there's a one coming from online. I just want to let y'all know Erica is online. Do you have an eye for us, Erica? Well, we got 2. Motion carries.
Great.
Okay.
Motion carries.
It'll be recommended to the full board, and I don't foresee any.
To take it to the full board. And so that will be in the next meeting, we'll have that.
Correct.
And do I need to do anything formal to get that put on the agenda?
Consider it taken care of.
Excellent, thank you. I appreciate all the assistance, Madame.
Well, that was quick. So if there's nothing else, I'm going to ask the Plant Moran team to join us, Caroline and Matt, to provide us an update on the completed audit projects this term.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen of the Audit Committee. Thank you for giving us this opportunity to present the results of our 2 internal audits. Why don't we progress to the first
Oh,
page?
sorry. I'm going to give you
No.
the slide.
Will you be able to see if you turn that? Okay.
Yeah, we've got a couple of
Yeah.
monitors that we
can Okay. Oh, thanks. Just some quick introductions. I'm Matt Bowden, engagement partner, joined by Caroline Main, senior manager, overseeing all of our internal audits here. So in summary, today we'll be talking about 3 items. Number 1, the results of our financial reporting internal audit, our family community engagement internal audit, and then number 3, as Connie alluded to before, some of the remediation activities, that ongoing project, using some of the dashboards and visualization that maybe will hopefully be reflected coming out of the reporting tool that she just walked you all through. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this slide. I'm going to hand it to Caroline to walk us through the specifics of the internal audits. Ultimately, we'll take you through high level. Ultimately, want to make sure we leave time for questions and focus on specific areas that may have resonated with you, just to make best possible use of everyone's time here today. So that's our plan, and we'll carry forward. So, Caroline, I'll hand it to you to kick us off.
Thanks, everyone. Good afternoon. So like Matt said, we will start with financial reporting. I'll start with just an overview of our audit objectives, scope, and then we'll dive into some of our findings. So we were engaged through this audit to evaluate the district's financial reporting internal controls during the 2023-2024 school year. Our audit objectives included evaluating policies, procedures, practices, and training related to first preparation and posting of journal entries, balance sheet account reconciliations, as well as management's review procedures around the annual comprehensive financial report. We also performed sample-based testing as part of our audit, so we looked at journal entry preparation, including whether journal entries are supported and timely, as well as independently reviewed. We also did some testing around balance sheet account reconciliations, validating that reconciliations are being performed timely, again, independently reviewed, and supported, and any variances are investigated appropriately. And then lastly, we looked at user access specifically within the Lawson accounting module. And then, as a result of all of our testing, walkthroughs, et cetera, we identified internal controls and then ultimately identified gaps and recommendations to mitigate risk within the financial reporting process. Any questions before we move into our findings? Okay, great. So we had 6 high priority findings and 1 moderate priority finding. And actually, I skipped right over the themes. So first I'll cover some themes and then we'll dive into a little bit more detail on the findings. So our first theme relates to an absence of established standard operating procedures. I know you've all heard this one before. It's a consistent issue, I would say, across the district. So absence of documented standard operating procedures in financial reporting has led to inconsistencies in the financial reporting. Those inconsistencies ultimately could result in financial reporting being incomplete or inaccurate, resulting in the district not being able to rely on that financial reporting for decision-making. Lack of these procedures also may result in internal control deficiencies, which we identified through our audit. Those internal control deficiencies could result in errors, resulting in potential financial misstatements, regulatory noncompliance, or fraud is the risk. And then the second theme that we noted here is around incomplete financial record keeping and internal control challenges. So the financial reporting team generally relies on physical records and is not utilizing Lawson for record keeping, which has caused some document retention issues. Although we were able to obtain enough support through our audit to still confirm the findings that we noted throughout the audit. Any questions on the themes? Okay. All right, so our first finding, I'll elaborate a little bit more around the lack of formally documented standard operating procedures which govern the financial reporting function. So we recommend that management develop standard operating procedures to promote consistent financial reporting preparation. These procedures should include detail around management's review, how what their precision of review looks like, how they should be documenting and evidence timely review, as well as clear guidelines around acceptable supporting documentation. And I'll go into some more detail on that as we get into our findings, but that's specifically around journal entries, reconciliations, as well as the annual comprehensive financial report. And then our second recommendation here as well is to assess the financial reporting function's performance using key performance indicators on a go-forward basis. Any questions? Okay. So our second finding here relates to training. So I would say this training is, again, kind of going back to the standard operating procedures. I think lack of training is part of the root cause maybe for why there are not consistent procedures and practices in place. So we noted that the function does not currently provide formal training as well as professional development opportunities to staff. And so firstly, we're recommending here to procure either develop internally or from a third party documented training materials to ensure consistency in training and prevent any knowledge gaps or errors that could lead to inefficiencies or unstandard practices. And then we also recommend implementing a structured training plan to kind of go hand in hand with that, which would define a timeline for onboarding new staff and what training staff should be receiving when they're onboarded, as well as throughout their time at the district. And then third, we recommend that the team continue to encourage continuing education and professional development to keep staff informed about changes in regulations, as well as just another opportunity for training and education to stay up to date on compliance. Questions? One thing I will note about this one that you'll see in the report as well is given just limited resources and budget, the team has opted not to implement the first two parts of this recommendation here to have financial reporting team specific training. They do plan to proceed with the continuing education that we've recommended. There are lots of free or inexpensive resources out there, so they do plan to require that through the EPATS process, but at this time, the team does not plan to move forward with recommendations 1 and 2.
I actually had some questions around that, given the fact that we are in the process of developing a new system. It's kind of like it seems these would be addressed because we will have a new system and new processes and new ways of doing things. And so there would be some SOPs put in place. There would be training because it's a new program. And I was actually thinking it might not be a good use of time to do training on something that will be obsolete, however many months from now. So I am aligned with that. Curious what the rest of the committee or Dr. Johnson, if you want to add something.
Yeah, no, I would defer to Lisa. Maybe Lisa wants to speak explicitly to that.
You nailed it. So part of the conversation we've had with Connie is that the team right now is doing the work, implementing the ERP, and I did make the decision that at this point in time, it wasn't the best usage of their time to remediate past practices, but instead to put all of their effort into building out within Oracle metrics and measures that would address all of these. So you'll see a part of our plan, our management's response is you'll keep us seeing us refer to the ERP and the implementation. We're taking all of this as we look forward and building that as we go into the next iteration of our supports.
So that being said, is there a color for, not right now, in your chart, just so there's not a penalty for it sitting open or I'm in the weeds, but.
Well, we did talk about like Band-Aids, right? So we're not ignoring it, and so we are. We're aware of many trainings that our staff is already encouraged to take trainings. We'll be making that a part of their EPATs this year, requiring that they take trainings, especially those trainings that are offered free and online by our auditors and Godot. And so we will be leaning into these efforts. Our SOPs, we have SOPs, we'll be strengthening those and crafting stronger SOPs for the ERP implementation. So it's not that we're ignoring these. We are thinking about how we implement the practices, but you'll really see the meat of the implementation through the ERP.
So in terms of how they will appear in our tool, if management is not going to move forward with, say, 1 or 2, I wouldn't enter them into the system. Just the pieces that they're going to do. Like Lisa said, they're not ignoring all of it. They did give us some dates for the EPAT and the continuing education, so that piece will be put in there, but the report will remain. So as we move closer to the new ERP, again, they will be taking these recommendations into consideration.
Okay.
And I will also note that you'll see with management responses, there are, deadlines for when they plan to implement the response. You'll see some of those are, I think, like December 2026, so that's part of the reason for those being pushed out a little bit far as well, is because management is considering the implementation as part of their remediation efforts. So, yeah, they won't be penalized, though, to your point, because we won't come asking questions from a remediation standpoint until after that date, and if that date needs to change depending on the timing of the implementation, we will, of course, consider that as well. So, okay. Okay, so moving into a few more of our high priority findings. Our third finding is around management's review procedures not being precise to detect incomplete or inaccurate documentation used to support journal entries, reconciliations, and the annual comprehensive financial report. We do recommend leveraging loss and functionality to store supporting documentation and document evidence of review. You will note from management's response as well that they are leveraging SharePoint and they will plan to do so at this point, given the upcoming implementation, but they do plan to consider leveraging similar functionalities within Oracle through the implementation as well.
Okay, we're going to pause real quick. I believe Earl has a question. Earl, we're throwing it to you.
I hope you can hear me now. Is that better?
Yes.
Great. Yeah, I just, just in the comments from the previous slide about the training, and it sounds like the position is maybe to table the training while we get the new system implemented. But I still feel like maybe we've brushed by, unless I'm missing something. Education is not a control. Training is not a control. So in the interim, what controls or detection mechanisms are we going to put in place to ensure that the financial reporting is adequate and timely and complete and concise? I kind of get in a kick the can down the road type of feel with with what I heard thus far. Maybe I misheard, but again, what's the control? Because training is not a control. What are we going to do to address the financial reporting in the interim?
Yeah, I'm happy to speak to that, and Lisa, if you'd like to add on as well. But I would say, Earl, I think we're about to get into some of more of the internal controls shortly here, but just to kind of give you an overview. So controls we identified, for example, for balance sheet reconciliations would be to make sure that reconciliations are being independently reviewed and that variances are being investigated and resolved in a timely manner in accordance with the district's defined procedures. For journal entries, it would be kind of similar along the same lines, right? Making sure that journal entries are being independently reviewed, that they're supported, and that there's evidence of that review retained so that, from an audit perspective and just as a best practice, so that there's, document retention and good record keeping. Those things should all be documented because they are critical controls in the process. So we did look at that, and that was our sample-based testing, and like I said, we'll get into that in a bit more detail here. But those were all things that we identified gaps and issues with through our audit, which is why we're recommending standard operating procedures and training to try to make sure that there's better documentation and procedures around those controls.
Okay, I'll wait to see the rest of the recommendations.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Good. Okay, so the next finding relates to reconciliation variances are not being properly and timely investigated. So again, back to one of the controls I just mentioned, we do recommend that management establishes documented variance thresholds and acceptable timelines for investigation. Those should be, standards that are documented in standard operating procedures and also, followed by management. And then we also recommend establishing defined procedures for investigating and resolving reconciliation variances. Like I said, through the audit, we noted that there did not appear to be evidence that there were established procedures for investigating and resolving reconciliation variances. So this would help resolve that from an internal control standpoint. Any questions?
I think I'll wait until the responses too, but I do want to hear what we're doing in the interim, and of course how ERP will help us going forward.
Okay. Okay, so our next finding is around, excuse me, is around insufficient evidence to verify timely completion of reconciliations and the ACFR. We recommend documenting all reconciliation and ACFR reviews with timestamps to evidence that these reviews were performed timely. We did note that a majority of our reconciliation samples, as well as the ACFR, there was not any evidence to document that there was a timely review performed. We also recommend implementing a monitoring process to promote timely completion and review of reconciliations. So this generally looks like some kind of a checklist or a tracking mechanism of all reconciliations that's reviewed at month or quarter end to validate that all reconciliations have been reviewed and all variances have been investigated in a timely manner. And then lastly, we, in alignment with what we talked about related to training, we recommend incorporating some of these new processes around documenting evidence of review and timeliness of review into training materials going forward. Okay. And then our last high priority finding is around unreconciled balance sheet accounts with activity throughout the year. The rationale and analysis of the materiality threshold that determines which accounts require reconciliations is not currently documented in policies or procedures. We're recommending implementing a monthly or quarterly general ledger roll forward to validate that accounts with activity and non-zero balances are being reconciled. Along with that, we recommend implementing a risk assessment process to determine prioritization and frequency of reconciliations. We understand, given staffing limitations, that that was a big part of the reason why the team was not able to reconcile all balance sheet accounts throughout the year. So this risk assessment process would help the district to prioritize which ones should be and at what frequency to help with the capacity issue, I guess. And then we also recommend using the auto reconciliation feature in Lawson and Oracle. Ultimately, the team plans to move forward with that recommendation as it relates to Oracle in the future state. We also recommend reviewing the chart of accounts for inactive accounts over the past 2 years and deactivating them to prevent erroneous journal entries. And then lastly, evaluating staff capacity to balance workload distribution. That kind of goes hand in hand with the risk assessment process, as we do understand that the team is limited at the moment and that is not likely to change anytime soon. So the risk assessment and looking at staff capacity should help with that. Okay. Any questions on that one? Okay. And our last finding, which is moderate priority. So the we observed through our audit that financial reporting personnel, one user had inappropriate director level access within Lawson. The inappropriate access was removed during the audit period after the documentation was requested. We recommend enhancing user access reviews to promptly detect inappropriate accounting access in Lawson. The team is currently working with the IT team on this, so we anticipate this being resolved through that review, but we do recommend that they continue to collaborate with IT personnel to enhance this process going forward. Okay, so that brings us to the end of financial reporting. I think we can jump into some questions now.
I believe we were asking them throughout the presentation. I'm scanning the dais. Any questions? Do we have any questions online?
I do have just one point of clarity. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Great. For the previous slide where you referenced the 205 unreconciled balance sheet accounts. So how did we ended up getting the balance? Was just like a top line journal entry to achieve that balance? How do we resolve it?
I think this might be a question for management.
Let me understand my question. If you've got 205 unreconciled balance sheet accounts, then how did you get to a place where you could effectively close the books, if you would? So did you just is there a top line journal entry just to balance out the unreconciled portion? And if that is indeed the case, is that authorized and approved by someone? How does that work?
They've heard your question and they are processing it, Earl.
Okay.
So hold tight.
Brian, I hope you were thinking the same thing.
I believe I was following you in terms of if it's a automated system and you have unreconciled balances, those have to be resolved before you can post the ledger.
Exactly.
Generically speaking. And that's a great point that you've made. And then, you know, I'm sitting over here thinking back to the 2020 Lawson ERP implementation. What were the value proposition of Lawson, why it was selected to be the tool, and what automations were in there that appear to be not implemented since then to mitigate resource issues, time constraints, so on and so on and so on. So I guess, and as a side comment, I'm kind of surprised by this audit, honestly, because you know, through the financial audits, these issues have been raised. Parts of these issues or themes have been raised, particularly the variances. I think that was a material weakness one year. I may be misspeaking here, so please forgive me. I don't have the report in front of me. But I just remember as part of the external audit, they're required to evaluate the system of internal controls, and then there were some deficiencies highlighted there through the years that, you know, to me, all these are a reminder of those. And so, and then the final thing I'll say is rhetorically, I know I've asked the question before, okay, hey, with these types of controls in the finance department specifically, which ones historically do we say, hey, we got the personnel for and we can do it, or we don't have the personnel for and we're just not going to do it? And so I know that's a lot, but I'll just pause there. I don't know, Earl, if you've got anything else. The problem with serving for so many years on this position now is I'm remembering all of these things. So
Right.
yeah.
I'll speak to the reconciled accounts. So some of these accounts carry zero balances, or there's very little activity on them, or they're below a threshold, $1 threshold amount for us to do the reconciliations on. So that, I think that's the specific question on this one. But the finding, we do accept this finding. So one of our recommendations, or the recommendations, was that we look through what those thresholds would be and standardize that, and randomize or in some way come up with a way that we would determine an auto reconciliation, which ones we would be looking at on a regular basis. So that's addressing this one. The ones around documentation, it's just we accept those. There is a lack of ability for us to demonstrate our reconciliation processes. It's not that we're not reconciling. So we're using Post-it notes, we're using red ink on ACFRs to mark things up, but that's not necessarily the level of ability to demonstrate that we're doing those reconciliations and checks that they were looking for, and we accept that. So that's why we are moving to SharePoint site. We're looking at ways that we can mark up within our PDFs that we're doing those reviews, and standardizing those processes. And I think we have July 2025 end date on that one. So we're actively working to address that.
Thank you.
Oracle will address all of this. I'm just speaking to some of the things we're doing in the year that we have between now and the implementation of Oracle.
Sure. One question that, you know, hopefully is fair and objective for you guys. Ms. Bracken, I know you've been here for a while since I started serving. Since 2019, for example, how much turnover have you had in your department?
I would say virtually 100%. Virtually 100%. I mean, you were here during the COVID years when we flipped the entire department for the most part. So a lot of that is, you know, the lack of training. It is us creating our own internal training, and a lot of it is us sitting with that next person coming in
and this is our processes. The other piece of that is you're seeing a lot of the same findings, but we've had loss in that entire time. We've been working with kind of a system that works against us and a lot of manual processes for the decade that I've been here. And so, yeah, we're working with the limitations that we have. It is frustrating to us as well that we continue to see those same findings, especially around, this time they heard our frustration a little bit just around a lack of SOPs, because we have them, but they are kind of bare boned because it's the team that's writing them themselves as they're doing the work. So we're very hopeful for the ERP. The implementation has gone really well so far. It's been very thorough, and the team has been in those meetings 8 hours a day this entire week. And so what we are seeing is an opportunity for us to get all of these things addressed once and for all, and also to get the documentation and the training afterwards, so that when new people on board, we do have that manual that we can just hand off. Yep.
That was a very good conversation. Thank you. Yes, Katie.
That was really helpful to hear that further explanation in your questions. With ERP and knowing its phase, and you said 2026, like how is this area prioritized if it's a high priority area for Oracle to that portion to support you
So
all?
finance is July 2027, or 2026 for the 2027 school year. So we will have it implemented. FY 2026 will do the 2027 fiscal year in Oracle.
Great, just making sure.
Mm-hmm.
It'll
And I
help
think
you all
payroll
sooner.
and HR is the year after, so some of our stuff will still be that year after. But this financial reporting piece is the first piece out of the gate.
Fantastic, thank you.
Thank you, Lisa.
Any other questions on financial reporting before we move on? All right, so we'll move into family and community engagement. I'll start by highlighting some of our audit objectives and scope, and then we'll move into themes and results. So this audit included evaluating the district's family and community engagement internal controls during the 2023-2024 school year. Our audit objectives included evaluating policies, procedures, and regulations that govern the Office of Family Engagement, as well as the Office of Strategy and Engagement. We assessed roles and responsibilities for engagement with various stakeholder groups. We evaluated staff training related to external communications, as well as performed sample-based testing around the Let's Talk dialogues. And then lastly, we identified internal controls as well as gaps and recommendations to mitigate risk related to those controls. We had just 2 high priority findings with this audit. Okay. So I'll start with a couple of themes. The first is we noted effective communication and stakeholder engagement. So the family and community engagement function excels in implementing policies and procedures in their daily practices and in their engagement with various stakeholders across the district. They do a nice job of clearly communicating roles and responsibilities within their department, and provide comprehensive training for consistent and professional external interactions as well. We did note that there was a timeliness issue with responses to community stakeholders. So there are some challenges in providing timely responses to Let's Talk dialogues due to the absence of an escalation workflow, independent oversight, as well as a lack of mandatory training. And these issues could result in negative public perceptions and decreased stakeholder trust. So our findings we'll dive into this more shortly. Okay, so our first finding, per board policy, Let's Talk dialogues are supposed to be responded to within 5 business days. We observed that topic owners did not respond within 5 business days for 20% of the samples tested. And the escalation workflow for these past due dialogues was disabled and is awaiting reinstatement by the new superintendent. Our recommendation here is to re-enable the escalation workflow and reminder notifications. We did note through the audit that staff have the ability to disable those reminders as well, so we recommend disabling that capability so that escalation workflow reminders do come through to various stakeholders. We also recommend developing key performance metrics related to response compliance, as well as creating internal feedback channels to address bottlenecks, improve platform navigation, and promote unresponsiveness. And then lastly, we recommend updating the existing Let's Talk training program to include board policies on response timeliness, roles and responsibilities, as well as communication quality. And that training should be provided to all current as well as future topic owners. Any questions so far?
This is everyone who uses Let's Talk, not just specific to family and community engagement.
Correct. Yeah, the term that is used by the team is topic owners, so those would be all of the individuals that are responsible for responding to questions that come through within Let's Talk. Yeah, thanks for clarifying.
So that includes board members too. Hope we weren't in that sample.
I won't disclose that. Okay. Okay. Okay, and then our second finding here, it's kind of along the same line. So there is a policy in place that mandates that responses are provided within 5 business days, but there's not an established policy that mandates a time frame to actually resolve and close out those dialogues. So what we observed was that for 8% of the Let's Talk dialogues that we tested, they were marked as closed. They may or may not have initially responded to the request, but they did not ever sufficiently respond to the question. So they may have responded saying, I'll get back to you, and then closed out the topic without ever getting back to the person. So we recommend establishing a standard resolution time for topic owners with clear guidelines for complete and accurate responses. And we recommend documenting the standard in standard operating procedures and including that in the training provided to all of the topic owners. And then we also recommend conducting quarterly reviews of Let's Talk dialogues for timeliness, completeness, accuracy, and communication quality. Any questions?
I guess I'm thinking about what the administration thinks about this tool and utilization of it and how we can better maximize it, because we do have it. I know I refer people to it and I hold myself accountable for responding. And there are some issues sometimes which could go back to my own training and use of the system.
So I'll let Travis come speak to this because he's oftentimes a ton closer to it than I am. I will say in general, I think it's a very valuable tool for the public. I will say our goal is to get to a place where people also feel comfortable just emailing us directly and knowing that we'll respond. And I think it'll take a little time, but go ahead, Travis.
Sure, thanks. Also want to call out Chanel Coleman, our project manager for Let's Talk, who handles all of this and tracks all of it, and will track you down if you do not respond to dialogues appropriately. The value that I'll speak individually on the value that I find in Let's Talk for a big portion of our community, and that's the people who don't engage with us regularly. Those who engage with the district regularly know who they should reach out to. Oftentimes, they also reach out to all of us in one email, but they know. 99% of the community doesn't know who the right person in the district is to get their question answered. This tool allows us to shift around and move around to who the right people are. And oftentimes, this is an internal challenge. We don't even know who the right people are. internally to answer a question. And this also allows us to say, hey, are you the right person, without clogging people's email box, and you can kind of follow the track. So I think it's a great accountability tool because we can show whether we are being responsive and whether it was effective in the response, but also for most of the people who don't know who to reach out to. One piece that I know Chanel's working on is there's consistent change in the organization from an individual person, not just whether they're in the organization or not, but even the body of work they're working on. On our website, we oftentimes put people's email addresses. Well, if that person changes their body of work or no longer works there, then you have to consistently update the website. If we just have student assignment, let's talk, HR, let's talk, then you don't feel those changes as much from the community because it goes to the person or the team to answer. And so those are things I think we can do better, particularly on the website redesign, of pointing people to HR or to a let's talk versus an individual person who may or may not be there next week.
Thank you for that answer, and I would love for us to consider, if we haven't yet, are we using Let's Talk to its full capacity? And are there some opportunities? And there may, this, if you want to answer now, that's great. If you want to provide an answer in the future, that's great. But I'm just feeling that there might be something there that we're not tapping into.
I saw Chanel stand up real quickly. We've explored some of the board work, kind of back and forth with the board through Let's Talk, but I hope Chanel can talk about a chat box. With some of our most common Let's Talk pieces are transportation and student assignment. And so there's opportunities for us to support people quicker and more efficient using chatbots, and she can probably explain a little more.
Good afternoon. My name is Chanel Coleman. As Travis stated, we activated chatbots for transportation and student records and assignment, or student assignment and records, and they were our high traffic topic owners. We've seen significant decrease in the amount of dialogues for both departments. So what we've decided to move forward with is activating the actual district chatbot. It actually went live the 7th. We ran into some issues, so we're actually as we speak, they're updating our chat box for the district. I think that would eliminate a lot of, what the chatbot does is it does a massive search and scan when they present a question to the entire district website, as well as all of the documents that's been uploaded in terms of the student handbook, the employee handbook. So any documentation that's within our website, as well as our school website, it scans and pulls that information. They have the generative AI scan now, so that's been a plus since I think October of last year. As Travis stated, we are moving forward with trying to create the landing pages for individuals, departments, to kind of narrow down when a person asks a question, who directly that question should go to. Right now, it's a little bit more broader because it's individual based. I think you posed a question, she posed a question earlier with timeline. The correction is when the dialogue is closed, it's not that it hasn't been responded to. It's they've responded, and maybe we have 5 days based on the board policy. However, you may have responded day 8. So that's the issue now, getting to respond and finalize that within the 5 days. Anything that requires additional time, then we have to change the status to pending. A lot of times people leave it still open. So that dialogue age is increasing when really it should have been in pending status to stop the clock. Because every issue cannot be resolved in 5 days. So it's just a matter of training them. But again, we have such high turnover, or we've had such high turnover within the past year or so that it switches a lot. So one of the things that we're moving forward with is having, I've reached out with Cynthia Nelson's department, IT department. We're going to mandate Let's Talk training like we do ethics training, like we do all the general training.
Can't wait.
But it'll be at your leisure.
Let me down.
It'll be at your leisure, and you'll also have the option to refresh. Some some
I need it.
topic owners may get 1 or 2 tickets a year, so you may lose it. So it just gives you the option to refresh at your leisure.
So the chat box, that's interesting. So would that be something, basically what the little,
Yeah,
just sticking out on the side?
yes, yeah,
Basically what Let's Talk? the
yes.
Okay.
So it'll be this little, I call it Bitmo, like a Bitmoji, the little round. And you'll click on that, it'll say chat with us. If we cannot get your answer resolved within that chat, it gives you the option, it sends you to submit a Let's Talk dollar.
So by any chance, you said you get a lot of contact about transportation.
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming that they got some real-time needs if they're calling about
Absolutely.
transportation. Does that chat box also speak to Here Comes the Bus?
Yes. So
Oh.
when you click on where's the bus, if you say in the chat where's the bus, it automatically reroutes you to their live. It just redirects.
Okay.
So some topics will be redirected to their platform for where's the bus for now. You know, that's a live instant, right? You know, you need an instant answer for that.
Okay.
And it has worked, it is currently working for transportation.
I've heard
They're
some
currently using it as
interesting
we speak.
feedback about
Yeah.
that app, but we'll do that a different time. Right. This is the one that kicked them to.
Oh,
But-
okay.
But this one is kicking them
That's a-
to the right
okay,
place.
okay.
This is what we do with it when we get them there. That's another audit.
Okay, okay.
I mean, one thing about Let's Talk, which is extremely helpful, like Travis was saying, is a one-stop shop. Like, we can be out in the community, and no matter who the stakeholder is, a parent, a community member, it doesn't have to be about an issue related to a student. It could be something around public safety that relates back to APS. I can easily tell them, go to Let's Talk, and I do tell them, if you don't hear back, let me know. And I get a lot of positive feedback, because they didn't hear back. And then people are like, yeah, I got a response from someone. And going back to also, like Retta's asking, I was asking too, how we better utilize the tool. I'm looking forward to updates as you all build these things out, which is great to hear, because they can run reports. I equate it kind of to the city's 311 system, which took time to put in place, but now we really see where are the opportunities to improve operationally, so that as we move forward, if this is a place that we can help support that work with Let's Talk, because, again, it's an operational area, but certainly want to see, how we can best utilize the tool that we have seen some success with, but we know there's some gaps and opportunities. So thank you for the update.
The data reports was assist with that as well, to show the needs in what area, which is always available for all topic owners as well.
Great, thank you. And I don't think we necessarily need to change the policy, but I did hear that 5-day, if we need to look at that to help assist with the reality of the situation, something we could take back to policy.
Is the chat box going to be orange like the Let's Talk? I know that sounds like a real trivial question, but I tell people, look for the orange.
Yeah.
And so if I need to tell them a different color, let me
No,
know.
that is correct.
Okay.
It will be orange as well.
I did a whole TikTok on it.
Okay. Click the wrong button here. There we go. Okay, so just to highlight a couple next steps, management will be implementing the agreed upon recommended action plans by the established deadlines in the reports. And then the internal audit team will perform follow-up remediation procedures to confirm that action plans were implemented in the upcoming school year.
Will you be coming back? Are you timed to do it after their 26 adoption for, like, are you gonna look at them transferring systems and not come like right in the middle, or, you know what I'm saying? Just like,
Absolutely,
okay.
yeah. So to Connie's point earlier, right, when she was walking through the new tool for action plans, this is ongoing, right? Every year there should be remediation testing performed. So what we do is we look at the date that management has indicated that they will remediate the action plan by. but we don't necessarily the next day come in and say, hey, show us what you did. Obviously, it kind of depends on the action plan, and we'll make a determination of, maybe it's something we can do immediately after that implementation date, but oftentimes we'll need to wait maybe even up to a couple months for instances of whatever action took place to occur. So, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Brings us right into remediation. So I won't spend too long on the timeline. I know we've covered this before, but so I'll kind of just, unless anyone has questions, I'll kind of jump to maybe the end here. We're recently, since our last meeting, we distributed the third round of surveys to confirm status of correction action plans. And we've been continuing on with testing since our last meeting in January. Okay. So that brings us to our first slide here, status of all open corrective action plans. So you can see the kind of yellowish bars or gold are caps not implemented per management. The blue is caps that have been implemented per management. We've noted that 90% of the open corrective action plans have been implemented, which is up 2% from January. Okay. So the next slide here covers the status of corrective action plans that are noted as implemented by management as of March 2025. This is just kind of an additional layer of detail to show you what the audit team has tested, I should say, for action plans that have been implemented. So you'll notice here that 10 additional action plans have been validated as remediated since our last report out in January. Okay. And this one just kind of drills in a little bit further, just to show you the action plans that were validated as remediated in the prior period, prior to January, as opposed to this period. Like I said, 10 of those action plans were remediated January through March, and 45% of the non-IT corrective action plans were implemented by management, remediated to date. And then last, I know I'm jumping through these quick, so please feel free to stop me if anyone has questions, but just trying to be respectful of time. So the last item here is the days past the implementation date for corrective action plans that have not been implemented by management. So this is just to give you a picture of how far past the implementation date we are. You'll note that 7 of the 23 corrective action plans you see here are related to loss and system constraints. So that will be corrected through the Oracle implementation. But yeah, otherwise, not much has changed with the ones that are significantly outstanding, as you'll see here.
So the only curiosity that I have, well, the most immediate curiosity that I have on this page, and you may need to get back to me, is procurement. It's old and it's important. I'm curious what those are, and if there's, there might be a rational, reasonable reason why they're still sitting there. But if not, just that whole column.
I will follow back up with you after this meeting. I do know some of them, there are some system limitations, but I need to work through that with Lisa and the Director of Procurement, and they could potentially come off, and I think they're close to working on some of them right now. Okay. We just have to do the follow-up. So I'll follow up after this meeting.
Some of those 7 are existing in that column of 4. And then, meaning they haven't been resolved because they're waiting on the system.
I'll follow back up with you after this meeting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll follow up. Okay.
How far we've
Any
come.
additional questions? Okay.
Any questions online?
Excuse me?
No questions online.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
So, Madame General Counsel, is there a reason for us to retreat into executive session?
Yes, Madam Chair, the committee needs to discuss a confidential matter.
Is there a motion for us to retreat to executive session to discuss a confidential matter?
So moved, yes.
Second.
It's been moved by Board Member Howard, seconded by Board Member Mitchell. All in favor? Aye. Any opposition? Motion carries. We'll see y'all when we finish. Separate link for executive session, so check your email and we'll see you in the conference room. And we are back from executive session, and Madam General Counsel, do we have any public comment?
There is no public comment, and there's also no,
Do we have any public comment? Okay.
there is no public comment, and there's also no need to report out from executive session.
Okay, with no one signed up for public comment and no need to report out for executive session, I will now entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved by Board Member Mitchell and seconded by Board Member Howard. All in favor?
Aye.
All
Aye.
opposed? We're adjourned.